Hi, everyone. Verlita White, Superintendent of Roanoke City Public Schools. So, let's talk a little transportation. First, I want to start with a point of gratitude. I want to thank our transportation work group as well as our staff members for really wrestling with the best options to put forward to our school board. We had some really lively and robust conversations. Didn't always agree, but we always were able to honor each other with respect and hear each other's perspectives in order to bring options and recommendations forward to the public and to our school board for their consideration. So I want to thank them for their due diligence and their time and effort. But I also want to thank all of you, many of you, thousands of you, weighed in on our transportation recommendations, and you've weighed in on just in general of what you believe would make for a great transportation system. Remember, we all share the same goal, and that is to get our students to and from school and to and from their activities safely and on time. And so we all share that same common goal. Why? Because it's important for our students to have a rich and engaging academic program. We do celebrate the academics, the arts, the athletics, all of which require transportation. And so we just want to make sure that transportation is a support to that wonderful and robust program that we want to offer our children. And they don't deserve anything less. So, having said that, I asked our Chief Operations Officer, Chris Perkins, to give me a bit of a history lesson, as well as our staff members and each of our school board members in preparation for their vote. I think it's really important for everyone to do their homework so that we know the complexities of the city. We know how the city has kind of grown up organically in terms of where our schools are placed. We have a full understanding of our programming. Remember that as a school system, we're a beautifully diverse school system. But that diversity also means that we have multiple programs and we have various needs to meet. We are proud to meet those needs, but they are needs, nevertheless, that require transportation. So, having said that, he brought us into the fold and gave us a little bit of a lesson. And Mr. Cathy, one of our wonderful school board members, suggested that we fill you in on that lesson as well. And I think that that's a wonderful idea so that you have the information that we have, so that we're all fully informed. We are one, and as one, we should have the same information so that we can together make informed decisions. They're not easy decisions. The number one option that we're putting forward to the school board is a comprehensive one. I believe that this is not an either or situation. Instead, it's an and. If for us to have the best shot of making sure that we're solving this problem, not just admiring it, but solving it once and for all, then I believe that we have to have a comprehensive approach. And so that comprehensive approach has multiple layers to it. And Mr. Perkins will take you through the why behind the what. And I know that your time is valuable, but I think it's important for you to know and be able to weigh in on the background of where we are, where we stand right now, and understand why we're making the recommendations, why the tiers have been formed the way that they have geographically, why we're suggesting more time in the Bell schedule, why we're suggesting some other kinds of recommendations so that, again, so we can meet that goal of getting our students to and from school, to and from home, and to their activities safely and on time. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Perkins to fill you in and to give us a little bit of a lesson on the geography, the transportation system in Roanoke City Public Schools.
So hello, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to come try to understand why we made the recommendations that we made to the school board. So I want to do a recap of the original recommendations, and then I want to talk about some alternate recommendations that we have for the division. First, the recommendations was to adjust the start and end times for some of our schools. Not all of our schools will be adjusted. Second, we wanted to realign our elementary schools geographically. When I go through the presentation, it'll be important to understand the geographic barriers that we have to deal with in our city. Next, we wanted to change or had a transportation change for after-school care programs, transportation change for Play-Doh recommendation, transportation change for STEAM, Noel C. Taylor Academy, and our walking zones. We need to truly follow those. And those are more family responsibility zones. And we want to make sure that you understand, it doesn't mean your student has to walk. What it means is the family is responsible by law within a certain distance for every school board. So we heard feedback at the school board meeting, and during that feedback, some concerns were raised. So we have an alternate recommendation for 3 that we will group together. And what we're proposing is that for STEAM, Play-Doh, and Noel C. Taylor, we will establish alternate service routes. These alternate service routes will follow what's in our parent handbook currently and has been for years. It also follows state code that guides our school board on when and where they have to provide transportation. So first, this is a direct comparison between the bell schedules currently in what we are doing and what is proposed. So you will note that for Tier 1 elementary schools, we're proposing 15 minutes earlier. Tier 2 elementary schools, time stays to change, there is no change. Tier 3, we used to have Forest Park Academy and North Taylor Academy at 8:30. We're proposing for high schools and only Forest Park Academy now go back to their former time. And they had this time for 15 years. This is the 8:45 start time for our secondary schools. And then Tier 4, for middle schools, of course, we added Noel C. Taylor Academy to that tier. Noel C. Taylor Academy is unique in that it serves middle and high school students, but it serves them at 6 different start and end times throughout the day. And our students at Noel C. Taylor, they may be there for 2 weeks, they may be there for a month, they may be there for a semester, or even a whole year. So it is a unique service that we provide. So we are proposing moving it to Tier 4 to allow us to meet those needs, and because we serve middle schoolers at that academy. And the time would be 30 minutes later. Now, this is the geographic realignment that we have proposed. The current geographic, you will see here that everything is on the north side of our school except for Fallon Park Elementary, which is in southeast near the Benton City limits. Tier 2, everything except for Fairview is in the south side of town. Now, that'll be more explained on how we want to switch this in a minute, but originally the idea was that we needed to have the schools closest to the bus barn, and I'll show you that soon, but there is a geographic efficiency that we pick up by doing that. However, talking with our experts in transportation, our new director, Mr. Dowdy, we can get better with addressing not just distance, but addressing time and volume. Volume meaning how many buses we need at each school, at what level, and we have to position ourselves to feed to that school at the most efficient manner possible. So what we're proposing here is Fairview and Highland, because they are Play-Doh programs, and they serve kids from all over either the north side of town or the south side of town. We need more time to get to them. Then Garden City, and there's a couple things about Garden City that I go into more detail, but Garden City is our autism center, and it's actually a regional center. And we serve a lot of our elementary students from all over the city there. And you'll understand distance, and not only distance, but time really plays a role in this one. And then, of course, Hurt Park. And Hurt Park, when we talk about the attendance zones, it'll be more clear. Plus, Hurt Park is more central to our city than what most people realize. So this is the map of the city, and I want to clarify a few artifacts on the map. So first, the bus barn is here. The bus barn is as far north as you can go in our city. In fact, it sits on the line with Roanoke County, and we serve our entire district from that location. The black numbers are all of our elementary schools. The yellow numbers are all of our middle schools. And then you see a yellow star with a black outline here. That is Patrick Henry High School. And then here is William Fleming High School. The yellow circles with black outline are actually our specialty schools, and I'll explain that in a little more detail later, but I just want you to kind of know what's on the map. And then our stars are 2 elementary schools, and there's some significant things that I want to mention about those as we go into the content. So first, for your information, we want to make sure you understand that as a school district, we are required to provide transportation for McKinney-Vento students, for our English learners, and our students with disabilities. What I want to do is kind of give you an example of a McKinney-Vento situation. For example, if Chris Perkins goes to school in Garden City, which is school 17 here on the map, Chris Perkins then moves in with his aunt. Let's say he's a victim of a fire, and he needs to be relocated to live with his aunt temporarily to replace. Chris Perkins may move to here on Thurlane, which is in the north part of our city, and he has an absolute right to go to school at Garden City, and so we have to provide that transportation. And this does happen. We have students that fall into McKinney-Vento, or over 300 in our district. These are students that have temporary housing issues or are considered homeless for us. And then our English learners. We do gain some benefit from our $9 million expansion of Breckenridge Middle School. That allows 120 students to return to their home attendance zone. So there is an efficiency picked up in that, but we have students other levels than just middle school that also need our EL services, which are not at every school in our district. We try to have some service, but depending on their level of English learning, there are different places that we have to bus them to. And then our student with disabilities. I want to talk about a few of the things that are important. Our multiple disabled students, we only have our programs are only in 3 schools. And that is Fishburne, which is school 14 right here, Madison, which is school 5, and PH, which is the star here. As you can notice, those are all clustered in the southwest corner of our city. Now, that is a systemic inequity because of space and the ability to do that. So we know this, but because the system has the space to do that, but we pull from all over the city for that service that we are required to provide. Our adaptive classrooms, we are a little more equitable in how we spread those out with space, going from Hurt Park to Fallon, Rams, Addison, Madison, PH, and Fleming. And then our autism. Now, I mentioned this earlier, Garden City, Rams, Westside, Addison. Now, let me explain students who attend our autism program. We provide services, and it is located at Garden City. Garden City is here. What is significant about Garden City is that it is the fastest route in our city. It is 10 miles from our bus barn. So that geographic alignment where we propose moving schools from Tier 2 to Tier 1 provides us with time to not only get students from anywhere in our city based on enrollment and their need, it takes time for the distance to be covered to get there. And so that is one example of how the geographic alignment provides us with some efficiency because we can start a little earlier. But when I say that, you're probably thinking, well, gosh, I don't want my child getting on the bus in the dark. Well, let me explain. When we were on a 2-bell system, we started loading buses at 5:45 a.m. When we moved to our 4-tier system, we did that for 15 years. When we moved to our 4-tier system, we actually got some improvement there, and now our first students this year are loading at 6:10 a.m. With the new alignment and some of the efficiencies we pick up, our first students were loaded at 6:20 a.m. So we have improved that. Quite frankly, if we were going to move the whole system to not be loading buses in the dark of the morning, we would have to move everything to way later than 9:30 for middle school, meaning that we would have to actually go home in the dark in some occasions the way it's going. So we didn't think that was an efficiency that we wanted to work on, because we have been doing this for years in the district. This school is the reason I want to point out, that's 15 is Grandin Court Elementary. If you've ever tried to get to Grandin Court in our city, you know that it sits in a neighborhood at the city limits of Roanoke County in Southwest. If you don't know Brambleton and Brandon and Main Street, that's a great route. But remember, we're picking up kids all over here. And so it is important, because there's no special programming here. It is important to look at how that is tiered, so we create the volume of buses needed to fill this attendance zone for Patrick Henry. All right, this is the attendance zone in light blue for William Fleming. And when I show you how the city is divided by its geographic boundaries, you'll understand why we say northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, because that'll come to light here in just a second. So let's talk about the first geographic boundary that we work with. Now, great. This is the 581-220 corridor. You probably think, all right, that's great. It provides a thoroughfare through our city. It does. If you're going from north to south, it is a great, fast way to cross what the next barrier is, the railroad tracks. And in our city, Norfolk Southern Railroad tracks divide it north to south. Now, those are important, because this is what I want you to pay attention to. This is northwest, this is northeast, this is southeast, and this is southwest. The first thing you noticed is all of these schools in southwest. Now, you're probably thinking, wow, well, this is a historical inequity. When the city started from the city center, it worked south first, and then we did a lot of annexation over the years until annexation was ceased by the General Assembly in the early 70s. But we annexed a lot of the properties here. And so these are small neighborhood schools for the most part, and these are all congregated in this general area. But as you can see, we have very few schools in northeast Roanoke. We have very few schools in northwest and southeast. But here's the most important. These are small neighborhood schools, small student bodies. These are larger student bodies. In fact, the third largest school in the city of Roanoke is Round Hill Elementary, and it sits right here. And it's only third to Patrick Henry and William Fleming. And that may be surprising for some folks. But there is a large volume of buses, both for students with disabilities and general education, that serve Round Hill. And when you need to get to William Fleming, and we did an optimization chart. And when you look at optimization, William Fleming is not close to a whole lot. But let me talk a little bit more. I want to point out, this is William Fleming's attendance zone. This is Old Southwest. This is Upper Southeast. This is Patrick Henry. This is Northwest. And this goes all the way up to Melrose. And in this case, this right here, number 2, is Lucy Addison Middle School. I could technically, and I'll show this in more detail in a second, but I could live 1 block from Lucy Addison Middle School, and I would attend James Madison Middle School. And you'll see that in a second when I get into more content. But I really want you to pay attention here. But we have another geographic barrier in our city that we have to negotiate, and that's the Roanoke River. When you start thinking about the Roanoke River, I want you to consider a few things. Bridges are expensive, and you cannot have a bridge crossing at every street in our city. And so it takes time to get across the river. And if you think about the crossings, you have Peters Creek, you have Memorial Bridge, you have Wasena Bridge, you have the low water bridges through the parks, which are not, buses can't go through there because of the gates and the concrete barriers. You've got Walnut, you got Franklin, you got 9th Street, and you got Bennington. Other than those bridge crossings, you're in the county or in Benton trying to get, or Salem, and the county, trying to get in the north-south barrier of the river. So, couple other features for you to understand. So I want to talk about specialty schools. And remember, the yellow circles with the black outline are specialty schools. Carilion, yes, we transport students to services at Carilion. Goodwill, Hope Tree. We have out of our districts much or schools that take time and distance because we serve students from all over the city at this location here. And then, of course, the Gov School. So to put volume in perspective, these all start at different times. 20 buses are required to pick up all of the students to get to these, and this is where the Gov School here is right next to Patrick Henry, to get all these students. So we have 115 routes, and 20 buses right away are taken from those routes for the specialty schools. And then we have Plato. There's 42 Plato students at Fairview, and there's 110 Plato students at Highland. So when you look at the Fairview attendance zone, we pull students from this entire area. This is Fallon Park Elementary, number 11. We pull students from Fallon Park to Fairview. And then for the Highland attendance zone, we pull all of these schools on the south side of the town, and there's 110 students there. Now, you're saying, well, he don't transport all of those. You're exactly right. The district does not transport all of those students. But it only takes one student to live in Glade Creek Apartments to be transported to Fairview, which creates a need and a service. And that's why we're looking at alternate hubs to pick the students up so we can cut down on multiple stops, because every time a bus stops, that's a guaranteed 2 to 5 minute stop depending on the circumstances. And then there's Fishburne. And Fishburne is number 14 right here. And we have 59 STEAM students from all over the city, which is very different from, and that's the green star here, is very different from the other programs because they pull from everywhere. Here's something else that's unique about Fishburne. Only 147 students live in their attendance zone. They have over 300 students. They have over 300 students that are, over half of their student body is in another attendance zone. So STEAM, while we had proposed to make that a parent responsibility, we had modified that, but that modification does create an efficiency issue for the transportation department. Now, I want to show a couple of other things that create some efficiency issues. This is Norfolk Southern, and these are the crossings across the railroad tracks in our city. Go out, drive them, pay attention to them. This is Peters Creek. This is Schaefer's Crossing. This is 10th Street, 5th Street, 2nd Street. This is the North-South Williamson Road, or 581. And this is the Hollins Road crossing. You'll notice they're color-coded. Buses can go through these crossings. Schaefer's Crossing, we've had buses get stuck in Schaefer's Crossing. We can't continue to send buses through there. So it is off limits for transportation. 77 passenger bus just cannot safely get through there at all times. And then this Hollins Road crossing, why is it yellow? Well, it's because of the train. And if you listen to the radio traffic, trains are through there all the time. And it could be 10 minutes, it could be 20 minutes delay depending on the traffic, the time of day, rush hour. So this is a barrier that we have to contend with. And when you think about how we got to position buses, if we know we can only cross here, it is important with all your schools here on how you cover the volume at William Fleming and Patrick Henry. So it is important to position buses. So we expect our transportation director to not only think about getting kids to school on time, but he's also got to think about how he's got to negotiate these areas here. The next thing that's important is the north side on 581. Now 220 is a little different. There's more crossings here, but the attendance boundaries is what's key about the south side. But the north side, Hirschberger Road, 10th Street, Liberty, and Orange Avenue 460. Now, if you ever travel Orange Avenue 460 in the morning, that is a big problem. That is traffic congestion at its best. Now, if you get down here around Patrick Henry and some of our neighborhood schools, that's traffic congestion that we have to prepare for. So that's why staging these buses in the right location geographically is critical. So you know our boundaries, but we got one more that we've got to address, and that's this right here. This is Wasena Bridge. Wasena Bridge is going to be closed for 2 years. Look at the services that are provided within this boundary by Wasena Bridge. Again, sticking to buses in the best location to reduce the time, to reduce the distance and to handle the volume of what those schools need to transport students. Because the better we get, the more students that are going to ride the bus. Now, we've covered that. Let's talk about preschool. We do not have preschool centers or classrooms in every one of our elementary schools. In fact, we only have them true classrooms in only 14 of our schools, with 3 out of the 17. And let me clarify, Monterey, our preschoolers there attend a student with disability classroom. There are no students at preschool at Preston, and that's why we're building a new school at Preston. And then there's Virginia Heights, and that's our hearing impaired program, and those preschoolers, and they come from all over. So here's our preschools. I want to really pay attention to the 72 at Fishburne, the 158 at Rams, and the 99 at Round Hill. That 99 at Round Hill really is helping Preston out. But as they fill these classrooms, and our goal is to be 1 to 18, as you can tell, we're not 1 to 18 at any. So we've got multiple classrooms, but it comes down to space too. Remember, we're dealing with buildings. In some cases are 100 years old. So that is important for us to prepare for. And so we do not have the building capacity to handle this. And so what happens is when we run out of room at Fairview, they roll over to Roanoke Academy. And this occurs. We may fill these classrooms and Roanoke Academy has space. We could be transporting a child from Morningside, if they want to attend preschool, to Roanoke Academy. And that is a transportation burden. Here's some other things that we need to talk about. After school transportation. Boys and Girls Club, 46 students. They pull from the large part of our city. The Presbyterian Community Center. The community center sits here, this is Fallon Park. It sits on Jameson, right there at 13th Street. We have students from Fairview that attend the PCC, and we provide transportation. And we did not want to end these relationships because they provide an important service for our students. Because remember, we've got to consider the nature and the need of our students along with the history of our city. Remember, I talked about how these schools got built. And so we need to address that. And these are the ones, the after-school transport or services that we're asking to eliminate. There's 41 students that we take out of zone, for-profit daycares. Now, we don't want to do that. We understand our need. But we have to reduce there's children who are late to school every day, and that's over 1,000 kids. And we cannot tolerate this anymore. And there's no guarantees because we still need Zoom to hire the bus drivers, retain the bus drivers necessary to meet this. And so if we have absenteeism in bus drivers, the extra time that we're asking for gives us time to circle back and get kids to school still on time if we have an absent bus driver. Now, I said I would talk about some other barriers, and I want to talk about some of the barriers that we deal with geographically based on attendance zones. Interesting. The first attendance zone I want to talk about is this blue attendance zone here. That's Round Hill. Round Hill sits right here. Remember what I talked about crossing interstate. We pick up a lot of students on this side of interstate and northwest and on this side of interstate and northeast. Now, that needs time. Plus, remember, it's the 3rd largest school in our district. So you need a volume of buses. Now, that's good for the volume of buses because our high school, which sits here at William Fleming, we are able to position those buses. So that tier change is important for Round Hill. Here's another. This is 460 on 460 at Orange Avenue at Bonsack in the county. Our Fallon Park school attendance zone goes all the way to Bonsack on 460 at the city limits. And then it comes down into Southeast. We have buses that, in order to get there on time and to avoid this bus route, that are having to go through Vinton. That is problematic for buses to be outside of our jurisdiction. The next thing I want to point out is Hurt Park. Now, we mentioned we want Hurt Park to go to the first tier. It's not because Hurt Park has done anything wrong. In fact, we got a great school at Hurt Park. But half their student body lives in the northwest quadrant, and half their student body lives in the upper southwest quadrant of the city. we can't send buses through there because all that does is create traffic jam, gets buses stuck, and we have to avoid that. So in order to get to this attendance zone with half the student body, we have to go down to 10th Street or we got to go down to Peters Creek, and you can see the distance, and that makes it difficult. So we need time and we need the volume of buses to move around to be positioned for the next tier in how we do scheduling. And then this is Fairview. Now you see the boundaries here are not that bad in the south side of town, but this is unique. This is Roanoke Academy, and this is West Side, this is Round Hill, but this is its attendance zone. Every bit of the attendance zone for Roanoke Academy is south. In fact, I could live right here on Andrews Road, a half block from Roanoke Academy, and I wouldn't go to that school. And that's significant for us. And so we have a feasibility study that we're working on to determine if we need a boundary study. And I think just looking at this from a rudimentary standpoint, we've got to consider boundaries. The next one, this is our middle school attendance zone. And I want to point out this pink section here. This is Lucy Addison Middle School. This is all of its attendance zone, and it stretches from Salem to 460 at Bonsack. And this is 460 Orange Avenue, Melrose, right here. While I know you don't want to talk about time, but rush hour was always a problem for Lucy Addison getting to school. The start time, that was not all of it, but we felt that our high schools needed to stay on at an earlier time, but later, because we know that as teenagers and adolescents, more sleep is better based on research. So considering traffic, there is a good benefit to the bell time in that students living off of Old Mountain Road trying to get to Lucy Addison, there is an efficiency that we get from that. But some other issues that I want you to look at when it comes to our middle schools. This is Woodrow Wilson. We have one crossing here. We have a lot of students in Northwest that attend Woodrow Wilson right here. This is James Madison. And remember what I said about Lucy Addison. I can live a half block from Lucy Addison and I'll attend James Madison Middle School. Also, this is Forest Park Academy. This is the James Madison Middle School attendance zone. That is significant because remember, we can't use Schaefer's Crossing. So we have to come out all the way interstate, all the way down 460, and then we have to do this, and then we got to go back and back that way. Now you may say we pick up with speed. The problem is you still got to negotiate that in a timely manner, and you got to have buses positioned to handle that. The next thing is John P. Fishwick. This is its attendance zone. It goes from all the way from Garden City all the way to the Bonsack in the county at the city limits. Those are just a few of the things that we have to negotiate, and our transportation director has done a great job trying to step in after 5 months and do these things for us. I hope this helps give a little bit of understanding to why when he is going into the system and he's using a program, there's so many things he's got to consider than just these things. These are very rudimentary. He's got to consider streets in Southwest that have cars parked on both sides. He's got to consider dead ends that buses don't have a cul-de-sac to turn around in. He's got to consider the flow of traffic and dead end street, not just dead end streets, but streets that buses aren't allowed. So all of this work has to be done over the years. And remember, we tore down a 2-bell system that we had for 15 years. Prior to that, we had a 3-bell system that ran from about 7:30 to 9:30 in 2009. And then we eliminated schools. And so those attendance zones have changed dramatically with Forest Park Academy, formerly Forest Park Elementary, Huff Lane Elementary that no longer exists, Ruffner Middle School no longer exists. It's now our Day Tech Center, which is great for our students. But those are the things in 2009 that changed. And then for 15 years, with problems with vendors, we are here today. So you have that history of some inequities that have occurred. You have the history, or not the history, but the inequities that are systemic, where certain programs are located, preschool, private day, things like that. And then you have the barriers themselves that we have to deal with. So I hope this helps. So I'm going to end here. I hope everybody has a great day.